I'm with, they always used to say, sweet little lovely Lesley Gore. That's the way they always introduced you. Do you remember that? Cousin Brucey, I think, still does.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm with, as far as I'm concerned, one of my favorite singers of all time, and one of the most unique sounding voices, and her name is Miss Lesley Gore. And thanks for coming by, and we got a show tonight, and we'll get through it.
We will.
Yeah, and they say there's a party afterwards too.
Gee,
Aren't you looking
great,
forward to that?
We only have 3 hours to sleep between second show and taxi in the morning. I love it.
What were your early influences, Lesley?
I listened to the people I still consider to be the great ladies of jazz: June Christie, Anita O'Day, Ella Fitzgerald, Chris Connor.
Yeah.
These were the ladies for me. The interpreters of song. They didn't necessarily have Rosie Clooney, just those great gals. They didn't necessarily have what I would call an independent persona, which is something that I later developed to some, in terms of choice of songs. These were pretty much cabaret singers, and they were always talking about being jilted and being blue and being the woman and waiting for the guy, and it was always, but I just adored the way these women interpreted lyric, and I learned a lot from them.
Phrasing too. I mean, your phrasing is it's so your own. Every time I used to hear your records, and I remember buying a couple of your first albums when I first started getting into it, and when we first met back in like '63. And you were doing some of those standards, and I just said, oh, God, this is great. I mean, because you really interpreted things. I mean, your phrasing, even today, I mean, every night when you're on stage, I sit back and I listen to that, because that's probably one of the most unique things about you, is your phrasing.
You're probably right. And of course, I don't think about it at all.
Of course not.
I probably don't really even listen unless something jars me and it doesn't make sense. I really don't think about it. I just think about a lyric as I'm singing it, as you probably do, and however it comes out is kind of how it comes out.
Yeah. Well, you're a singer. I mean, there are people that sing songs that aren't singers. Mm-hmm. There really is a difference. A person can study or they end up a jingle singer. But when you're a singer, you have that natural instinct to sing, and you can sing a song.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I think I really caught on to you in the early part of your career, because I found you unique. I
didn't find a lot of groups anyway culling from the jazz influences. Of course, now, you can't turn on CD 101 and not hear the greatest of stuff, and everyone's into it. It's really kind of mainstream, but certainly then it wasn't.
Yeah.
You sang right on the beat, very straight. Yeah. Back phrasing was, sort of something for another era.
Yeah. And of course, at that time, you were using Quincy Jones was. You were the first to use a Quincy Jones, who produced you.
Right. Actually, Quincy had his first pop records with me.
Right.
He had come out of the jazz world, had been in bebop, had done his big band thing, and really at that point had not made any hit records. So we were very lucky to come together. Irving Green kind of put us together. He heard a jazz sound in me and figured Quincy could probably find a way to make that commercial. Yeah. And we did it through the fact that I was young, had a young-sounding voice, and chose material that
was very
represented exactly that age group.
Yeah.
We really targeted that group without even knowing that that's what we were doing, I think.
There's a story that someone says that Quincy, you go to his office and he has one record. I heard that he has one record, one gold record, and it's My Party. I mean, of all these records, I mean, I've heard this story many times.
Is that right?
Someone said they go into Quincy's office, and there it is. It's My Party was his. It's the first and the best.
I believe Warner Brothers now is doing a huge documentary on Quincy, and some friends of mine have seen it. And naturally, the first part really is about It's My Party and how all that took place.
Great. Yeah, that's wonderful. What does it feel like? I mean, you really have an anthem after 30-some years in rock and roll. I mean, It's My Party. It's like bang, it's like a light goes on with everyone.
It's true. It's always fascinating to me. Of course, when I think of It's My Party, I'm I like the song and I really like the record, but the piece of material that for me has lasted a little bit longer and has come to mean a little bit more, and for me this is the anthem, is You Don't Own Me. Now I understand that because It's My Party was the breakthrough record, and a lot of people truly relate to it, and I understand it. In some ways it's a little, I don't know, maybe lyrically it's a little soft. It's dated. It's certainly dated when you talk about Judy and Johnny having gotten steady and blah, 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 and passing their ring. I don't even know if this is a ritual that kids do today. But I think it dates it to some degree. You Don't Own Me, on the other hand, which was written and recorded in You Don't Own Me in 1964, that has grown over 26 years. Today that lyric seems to mean even more.
That's probably one of the fascinating things about you, because you keep growing. You keep growing in every aspect. I mean, some people walk into a studio and they're told what to sing. A lot of the early people who recorded, we know they were tracks done, and you don't even know what, the artist didn't have a chance to pick their material.
Right. True.
But you, I mean, you've grown in so many aspects of writing, and then to do something like You Don't Own Me, I mean, you were before Helen Reddy, let's face it. I mean, it's like the ultimate women's lib song, and you said, listen, I'm thinking for myself, and I'm not a toy, and don't put me... And that was like so shocking, I guess, at that time, but it was...
Well, of course, I mean, when I heard the piece of material, I didn't think about it from a female's perspective. I really thought about it from my teenage perspective. It didn't come from being a girl or a woman, or it just came from the frustration of being in school and having authority figures and parents and so much that you had to do. I think it came more out of a kind of a rebellious teenager place, and has, of course, become an anthem for women, which makes me very happy, because I believe in that.
Touche, yeah. Did you ever speak to Helen Reddy about it? I mean, you know her, obviously.
Oh, I met Helen some years ago, back in the 70s. As a matter of fact, I met her the week that they released I Am Woman.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But, I mean, at that time, in the early 60s, there was no women's movement to speak of. So no one said, oh, this is a song about women talking to men? I mean, it was just a record. Of course, when Helen did I Am Woman, which was so much more overt in terms of its anthemism, then all of a sudden people started thinking of You Don't Own Me in a different light. The interesting thing about Helen Reddy is she was brought over from Australia to record for Mercury Records maybe 2 weeks before I was signed and recorded by Mercury. And at the point where they brought her over and I started having a hit, they said to her, thanks anyway, Helen, we really don't need you. And no, I swear this is a true story.
Sorry, Helen.
I felt terrible. She had was probably holding a grudge there for about 12 years till we straightened this out. I said, gee, I really feel terrible about it. And I really did, because I know how those companies worked, and they probably did say this. We got a girl on the label now. Go home.
Yeah, go home.
To Australia. I got my kid. I got my,
That's interesting.
But she was tenacious, and she broke through.
Mm-hmm. Did I know probably most of us have passed up songs that were publishers walked around with and said, record this, and we got one for you, baby.
I did one recently.
What did you
Recently.
do? Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, within the last year.
What was it?
Don't Rush Me.
You're kidding.
No. Pretty good, huh?
Don't rush me. Sorry.
I made a mistake before.
Oh, no.
I actually heard, I said, yeah, this is a hit. I didn't necessarily think it was a hit for me, but I thought it was a hit song.
But then you turn around, and one of the aspects that a lot of people don't know, is that you're such a great writer. And then you
write... my secret life.
Your secret life, and I know you really like it, too.
It's interesting, too, because I'll write a song like, I'm thinking of something called America's Sweetheart, which is a song that I wrote, which is really... certainly autobiographical, and it kind of takes 26 years and condenses it, if one can do this, in 3 minutes and 22 seconds. But it's a song that is not necessarily easy for the listener to hear. It takes you through some trips, the ups, the downs, the ins, the outs, and a lot of people don't want to hear that from Lesley Gore. I have another song that I think is a hit song. It's called We Just Can't Walk Through Life, and it talks about the homeless and children being abused. And it's not the most subtle song, because I don't find the subject necessarily should be handled in a subtle way. But it's interesting when people hear me sing it, they go, Lesley, you can't sing this song, because it's too much of a message for them to really absorb. with the image they
Yes.
have of me, of It's My Party. It's a kind of a rough conundrum that I'm working through. I don't know how I'm going to solve it. Maybe I get other people to sing the songs that I write, so people don't go, "Oh, that's Lesley Gore singing the wrong song," you know, or a song that they can't relate to.
Yeah, but you know, I probably. I mean, you have that little of a rebel streak. I mean, that you don't own me when you think about it. That was one of those things that probably stuck out too. It's like, what? Oh, what's she doing? Why can't, you know? So it. Yeah, but of course, I understand you're probably in that predicament of trying to make them believe it. I mean, other than the people who are behind the desk and who are the ones who are saying, "Yeah, let's go with this record and let's cut her this way," and you know, because I mean, you can't sing that same head trip 20 years later,
you
30
really
years
can't.
later. It just can't, you know.
I mean, you can, well, you know, you can get up enough enthusiasm to get through the songs, and certainly 26 years later, when you see the audience enraptured by these songs and enjoying them so much, it certainly gives you a little bit more to go out and a reason to give it your all. But I don't think any of us really want to sing these same songs our whole life. We want to at least sing other things in addition, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly, I know you're always putting in your material, which is, you know, to your benefit.
You have to keep it alive and keep it fresh for yourself, because you got to,
absolutely.
you know, you got to get out there and do it and sell it to
Absolutely.
them. And if you don't believe it, you know. But what did you think of the generation after you? I mean, after you were really like a forerunner of all these things. Then Carole King came along, and then Carly Simon, and then Helen popped her nose in it again. I mean, you were really, you know, on the ground floor of all that.
I was, but I wasn't smart like some of the young women that are starting out now, who look at what's going on out there and they assess this whole situation. For example, at 16, 17, 18, when I was doing 2 and 3 albums a year, writing was not as important as it is now. I would write occasionally. Well, my goodness, I should have been writing, you know, 5 out of the 10 cuts on the album if I had been really smart and had understood what it was all about. It took me a while to understand that. Eventually, by the early 70s, I was a singer-songwriter, or at least I was singing the songs that I was writing in clubs and singing them on record. But I wasn't smart enough at an early age to direct my career and my loves the way I needed to.
I think we all sort of fell into that, you know, because it was a new business and no one knew, I like this, and I really like to sing. So, you know, just having that shot of getting out there and singing and performing was a do.
We were a little naive, I'd say.
Yeah. Tell me about the Fame. You know,
The film?
The film, the music that you wrote for Irene Cara.
Actually, it was a fabulous experience. You have to know, first off, Michael, my brother, got involved, and he was called in on the project very, very early on, before they even had the final script. And originally, they were not going to use new music, original music. They were going to use all source music. And as the script kind of fleshed itself out, Michael started writing songs in places, new songs, original material, in places he thought it would work. And as Alan Parker and Alan Marshall developed it more, they saw that they could use original material. And then, of course, I turned Michael on to Dean Pitchford, because I really didn't consider myself a lyricist. And Michael wrote a beautiful ballad, which I heard once, and I heard the title in my head, so I said, gosh, let me try and write this. I knew Out Here on My Own was a pretty darn good title. I read the script, and I pretty much had a sense of what that character had to say right then and there. So I went for it. I locked myself in an apartment for 2 or 3 days and wrote the lyric. And
it was good.
Yeah,
it was
fun.
good. It was
nice.
wonderful. And wasn't it nominated?
It was nominated for an Academy Award in spring of 1980. Yeah.
Oh, that was great. I was thrilled when I heard about it. What was one of your favorite albums? I mean, we all have something that necessarily wasn't successful, because I heard a couple of things that you did that just knocked me up.
There were a couple of albums, I barely remember some of them, in the early Mercury years. There was one called Boys, 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 which I think was the album that You Don't Own Me was on. There were a couple of pieces of material on that I liked very much. But of course, I think the album that means the most to me to date is the album I recorded in '76, again with Quincy for A&M, called "Love Me by Name."
Yeah, that's the one I was.
Yeah, that's just a great song. And of course, when I can stretch and do a longer show, I pretty much like to sit down at the piano and do "Love Me by Name," and I do another song called "Other Lady." And I've been very fortunate on Other Lady and "Love Me by Name." I've had various people cover those songs. I know Lucy Arnaz called. Just last week, she was opening down in Atlantic City and couldn't think of an intro for this song, and she just loves the song, and she's got it slotted in a very important time. She's trying to come up with an intro, and we kind of worked on it for a while, but I was very happy and very flattered that she was doing the song.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, as a matter of fact, I did see she was down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how many people know this, but you did Batman. You did, the Sullivan. How many Ed Sullivan shows you did?
Yeah.
And you did what, Donna Reed?
I did Donna Reed as myself.
What was the Batman thing? That's like...
The Batman was great. You remember Julie Newmar, who played Catwoman?
Yep,
well,
sure.
Julie Newmar was this gorgeous 6'2" in a sleek black sequin. I played her assistant, Little Pink Pussycat.
That's right.
They had me dressed in all pink. I had this little pink puff for a tail. I had these ears and little mittens I wore around my... But I was a bad guy, which was an awful lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I kind of got captured and, hung out in the Bat Cave.
But to see it unfold again after how many years? What?
It's an amazing
Did
phenomenon.
you think they would have called you on that? Did you have anyone call you on playing anything in that?
You mean for the film? For the film? No, as a matter of fact, but oddly enough, Julie Newmar started doing some press for Batman, and she would be all over the country, and I'd get these calls. We're doing a show about Batman tomorrow morning. Would you call us at 8:00 in Minnesota? So we would talk the whole week that Batman was out for some reason, and I never expected to be asked to do a part in the film, but it was fun doing. It was fun doing the series.
Fun.
Yeah.
What about Sullivan? Any odd, strange experiences with Sullivan?
Well, I think Sullivan, for me, it was the separation of the men and the boys in my mind. As a kid, I started out, I really didn't have much experience on a stage. It was all kind of hit and miss, trial or error. What I lacked, of course, was technique, which, of course, now, after some years working on a stage, you just develop a certain amount of technique. But if I knew I was doing an Ed Sullivan show, well, I would say I was kind of sick almost for several months in advance. It really wore on me, and I put myself through an awful lot of changes. I would wake up in the morning at 5:30 or 6:30, and I would absolutely go through in my head all the possible things that could go wrong on the Ed Sullivan show 2 months away. So this made me quite anxious. I had to spend an awful lot of time. I went into hypnosis to try and help conquer my fear, and ultimately, of course, the essence is you do it and you learn how to control it, and it gets easier and easier. But the first 4 or 5 Sullivan shows, I was basket case. Serious basket case.
I know I wasn't allowed on the show.
Look, the first time that I did the show, I'm waiting downstairs in the wings. Shelley Berman comes off. He was to open the show, and he bombed. He bombed just terribly. On live TV, he comes off, takes his toupee, throws it in the garbage can, and look, I take a look at Tony Bennett sitting in the corner. He looks like he's going to throw up, so I don't feel so bad. Everyone looked like a basket case. This very same show, there was a dance team on. I'll never forget this. The dance team had 2 numbers that they were supposed to do, and come rehearsal, 3:00 in the afternoon, dress rehearsal. After dress rehearsal, Ed Sullivan cancels their second number, and this European dance team, they were just irate. So somewhere in the first half hour, they go out, they do their first number, and then they finish the number, they go upstairs to their dressing room, they take off their dance clothes, and they start walking out the door. When, of course, we discover that the Sullivan show is running, things are going a little more quickly, and by gosh, we're going to put in the second number. Well, this dance team was out the door. They were gone. I'm looking at this going, this is how they do national television? It was really a shock.
Oh, my God.
And they were so angry they wouldn't come back. Well, no, I think that was about the last time they did the Ed Sullivan show, too. Why wouldn't let you on the Ed Sullivan show?
Because I was handled, I think at the time, what was the agency? It wasn't William Morris, it was CIA or CMA. And Ed Sullivan had a fight with my agent, and he said the record was #1, and they said, we get him on the Sullivan show. So we were all excited. Wow, we're going to do the Sullivan show. So Sullivan heard the record and he said, we can't do this. This is not his voice. This is electronics, and we're not. And they said, the agency said, no, it's his own voice. And he says, no, bring him down here to audition. So they had an argument. He's not coming down to audition. He's got a #1 record in the world, and you're going to ask him to come down and audition for you. And they got into a fight, and that was the end of it. By that time they ended the fight, it was number 20 in the nation.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Ed Sullivan he put a lot of us on TV, and he really, other than Dick Clark, nobody else was really putting rock and rollers on television. Yeah. So I have to thank him. He was, I think, instrumental in certainly helping me.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, sure. But that period, did you find an extra sense of responsibility being this teenage girl singing these songs and people writing to you? And
that's interesting because I've never discussed that with anyone. But yes, definitely. All of a sudden, you have this hit record and you're hearing it on the radio, but suddenly there's mail coming to yours and people are very conscious of you, and suddenly you're aware of people in a very different light. I think in a lot of ways I found what was going on kind of sad. I was getting letters from young kids who weren't loved at home, who really didn't have family support, who were being abused or mistreated. Kids who had real physical problems, or kids whose parents had real problems, like alcohol or dope. And you'd read these letters, and boy, it really felt heavy to me at the time. Maybe it's because I was just so young and I really couldn't have sorted those problems out for myself. Suddenly to realize there were so many people out there who were kind of unhappy, I realized I was in a very pivotal position, and I found it to be somewhat burdensome, certainly serious.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be, because you were one of the few girls out there who girls could write to. Girls
would write to me, exactly. I was also the first white middle-class girl in an era where mostly everyone was coming from black, poor Philadelphia.
Yes.
So there was this whole group of people that now had somebody to relate to, and the mail just poured in, and these people had major problems. As big a problem as if they were, living next to a crack house or had no money. So it was quite a period of realism for me, and frankly, in terms of my own innocence, I equate the loss of my innocence with the day that Kennedy died. For some reason, that everything just felt so heavy for me during that time of my life, and it should have been a very light, easy, nice period, but it really wasn't all that sweet.
I agree. I think that first shot was the beginning of the end. It was like America, the innocence was gone from America, and we all had to grow up quite fast. Quickly. When you hear music today, when you hear some of the lyrics and that, with the rap music and that, what is your concept on it? Do you like it? Do you miss melodies?
Oh, sure. One thing I must say about music today, there seems to be room for everything, and I like that. I hear certain rap things, I go, oh, that's pretty great, and yet it's not the form of music that when I go home and put on the CD, I don't have the greatest collection of rap records. I'm into more of the jazz stuff, I'm into more classical, I'm into, a good song is a good song, whether Milli Vanilli is singing it or there are still some good songs out there. Diane Warren is writing some good stuff. Who else is writing? I've been interested in K.D. Lang lately.
Oh, yeah, me too. Isn't she great?
She's just as a matter of fact, I had an opportunity to interview her last weekend for a Ms. magazine article.
She was in town, that's right. She was in New York, right?
She was up in the Rochester, Syracuse area, and I went up there last Sunday and spent Sunday night with her, and Monday we did the conversation. We did it a little differently. We wanted it to be more like a conversation, and it'll be coming out in the first Ms. in May, and it should be really fun.
There you go again, reaching out.
That's the point. You have to. I was so excited about this. I was so psyched about it for like 2 weeks. I thought that's all I could think of, and it was really fun. I enjoyed doing it, and that's what we got to do.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've been around long enough that we can we've seen enough of that side of the mountain, you know, where maybe some input or some questions other than the same questions that we were asked when we were teenagers, you know.
Yeah.
You know, we liked Annette and
Yeah.
ate pizza.
Right,
You
right.
don't like girls that smoke cigarettes, though. And thank God you don't smoke.
All right.
I want to thank you.
My pleasure, Lou. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.